All right, I've hit the recording button, so
For recording? Did you hit the
now
button?
yeah, I hit the bottom one too.
Oh.
Yeah, I hit
Oh, look
both.
at you. Hit
Yeah,
both buttons.
yeah. Well,
Okay. So now that we're recording, before we get into our main topic for today, that's going to be a
a doozy.
riveting discussion. John, do you want to talk about our revelation? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, in this grand scheme of life, small potatoes, but for us, I mean, significant revelation.
Yes.
Would you like to describe this revelation, or would you like me to describe it?
I'm
It
I'm
happened outside your
and
house,
yes.
so I'll give you.
Wait, what?
I'm gonna I'm gonna preface this saying that man,
Uh-huh.
he uh he definitely is much more business focused, and I'm just gonna say it, I guess. That man has got an easy way to make a lot of money relatively, in a short amount of time based on the dude has basically an old garbage truck with a custom wrap on it, and all his business does is go around and pressure wash trash cans and dumpsters.
Like people's like your home
Yes.
trash can and dumpster.
That's genius.
My head still hurts.
Like, do you guys not own a hose or your own pressure washer and can't take 15 minutes out of your day to clean your trash can if you want it
Why are
clean?
you washing a dumpster? It's a receptacle that holds trash.
I mean, mine sit outside and get covered in a bunch of pollen and dirt. I mean, I understand rinsing it off every once in a while
Why? It holds trash.
because I also don't like just holding something disgusting as I keep dragging it up and down. Rinsing it off with water is fine.
Okay, fine. Rinse the handles off so your hands don't get dirty. Aw.
My hands are
Aw,
gonna
your
get.
hands are gonna get dirty. Aw.
Shut up, Steven. I saw the way you
But
handle
just-
your hygiene. Shut up, Steven.
It's not that bad.
It's not that great.
So but the thing that blew my mind was, again, we're not talking about an individual going around in their van or pickup truck, like with with a pressure washer and one of those magnetic stickers things on the side of the vehicle. No, this was a legit vehicle that is, I don't want to say purpose built, but
It's customized.
Yeah, it's customized, pseudo purpose built for this purpose, and has a custom wrap on the side. And it's like dumpster and trash can cleaning. And it's not, and I think you made the point too, when we were talking about it. Like, oh, okay, you see a scenario of commercial dumpsters. Like there's a thing for, like, if you were holding chemicals or something like that, there's a reason for cleaning that stuff up periodically. But no, the image on the side of the truck was a person's trash dumpster, just that you would have at the house. And that's all this business is, going around and what was the word that you used, John,
Which one?
to describe the level of care he was taking to clean this thing?
Oh, he was detailing the trash can.
He was detailing the trash. He used soap. And was he using a rag as well?
Yeah, like a nice microfiber cloth.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly legal. So I think it's genius.
Wait, so I've been like,
Not paying attention.
no, because I've been adding stuff to the show notes. Was this somebody that came here and did
Yeah,
this to your
Yeah,
trash
it's parked
can?
out here on the street.
Oh, not my trash
Your
can.
neighbor's.
It was a neighbor's
yeah.
trash
Okay.
can.
Is this a service that was provided? Like, did
Yeah.
somebody pay for this?
Yeah, someone paid money to
Yeah.
have their trash can
See,
washed.
I'm okay with like the Good Samaritan thing. Like,
No,
that's
no.
fine. But if somebody paid
This
for
is
this,
a business.
you got more money than that. That's just
Okay, so here, but we have to be
why.
But that's
The entrepreneurial spirit is commendable.
Do they
I
not
was gonna say
have
the
a-
dude that's doing the
I'm
business
not
is
faulting
genius.
the guy. Yeah, I'm not
It's
faulting
genius.
the person doing the cleaning. Yeah, I mean, hey,
No. Yeah, they're not the problem. No, the
yeah,
person
no.
paying for
If
this
you
is
can
the
easily
problem.
rip people off, go for it. But like,
That's not ripping people off. It is blatantly obvious what he's doing.
it depends on. Okay, my statement is predicated on his what marketing he does, because there is very much a scenario.
If he's marketing, I'm cleaning your trash cans, and he's literally cleaning their trash cans, that's about as honest as it
If
gets.
if this is a whole trying to sell Eskimo ice kind of thing, then I disagree. But that's a slim. That I'm more so on your side of, he's probably just saying, it's like, hey, I'll come clean your trash can if you want it. and people were just jumping up. Oh yes, I'd love you to come clean my trash
I
can.
am
It looks
the-
so dirty just sitting out there by the garage.
I am the Diablo Immortal guy. Like, do you guys not have?
I don't even know if I should bleep that out or not.
I think if we have to question it, you should probably bleep that out.
Or just cut it out entirely.
No. He can bleep it. He can bleep the statement. That's fine.
We can make a. I'll make a meme to go with.
Anyway, that wasn't just the most important thing in the world. It was just for me. It was just a cherry on top. for the
What
day.
gets
It was
me
just
is
one
like-
of those like I was already
Yeah.
just frustrated and annoyed getting here, and then that just
What gets me is like, yeah, he had not only did he have like a customized vehicle for this, he had a customized vehicle that has its own water tank and pump.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Like the
It's
pressure washer's
lit-
built into the truck.
It's literally an all-in-one
Yeah.
roll-up solution, which is sick, by the way.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
So what I'm hearing is that there's also a little
And-
bit of jealousy here.
well,
Oh, some.
not
But like
really, but-
again, if his business was just a pressure washing business, he
Yeah.
went around and he like pressure washed houses, driveways, trash bins, things of that nature. Sure, yes, but it's so narrow that you're only doing is you're pressure washing
Yeah.
residential trash cans.
it doesn't mention sidewalks, siding, anything on the side of the truck. As far as the advertising that's on the truck itself, doesn't mention anything else but trash cans and dumpsters. That's it.
I want to meet this person. And
Well, if
just
you would have gotten here
congratulate-
on time,
That is fair.
it's impressive. That's impressive.
I don't know. Maybe this is a subscription service. Maybe he'll be here next week and you can catch him. God, if somebody got this done every week or even every month,
I was gonna say probably monthly.
every quarter, like that would just.
I think
Okay.
they would be not massive fools, but like again, you know me, I have no problem just wasting money
Sure.
on. That is the definition of wasting money.
line.
This is my line.
Yeah. Okay.
If you see me now, like
Mhm.
actively throwing money to have my trash cans washed, yeah, you can go ahead and
so
put me in the
that's when we
asylum.
know that there's a problem.
Okay.
That's when we know things have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all right.
So anything else?
Welcome to Hostility in the Morning Show. I am your host, John, joined here today by.
Nathan.
Matthew.
Steven.
So how has your guys' week been? I mean, it's got to be better than a few other specific IT realms that may or may not had a rough past couple of days.
I didn't push out any updates, if that's what you're asking.
Really not that specific, actually. It seemed to be fairly broad, you might say.
Matthew?
I had a great time.
Well, it seems like somebody broke the golden rule. And Matthew, you know this golden rule. Go
What
ahead,
is-
go ahead and share it with the class.
What's the golden rule?
Always test in production.
Well, that is a golden rule. Don't do that. No, it's
I was gonna say that rule was followed, clearly.
you never push out an update before the weekend.
Yeah. That's fine.
Nothing ever goes wrong. Nothing ever can possibly go wrong.
Well, if you do your job right, nothing should go wrong.
in theory, CrowdStrike wasn't aware of that.
CrowdStrike took the Microsoft method of testing code
Actually, it sounds like this was
or
even worse.
building code.
Oh no, this was significantly worse.
It was at this point that the audio engineer decided to touch the mixer, and the editor did not like it.
Okay, now talk normal.
Talking. That's better.
I hate you.
Maybe just a touch more. Just a little.
We finally settled on an adjustment, but hostilities brewed.
Hey,
You messed with it before we started recording.
I
was
did
fine
not.
hey,
before
this
you
is a
I did
started.
not.
recording about
I didn't-
testing in production,
didn't
so
touch
you know
You have the
we are
light
testing
on.
in production
I
right
was
now.
touching the expander. That was not, and I wasn't even touching you. I was touching his because his S got cut off, and he kept murmuring this.
Hey,
thing
I don't
over.
remember
So I was
consenting to
fixing
this.
it.
The audio engineer finished his rant, and after a tiny adjustment, we were ready to continue with our riveting podcast. All was once again tranquil in the Hostility studio.
Sweet Caroline. Ba ba ba.
What?
I was just saying we can start back now. Anyway,
So CrowdStrike.
CrowdStrike. They had a little bit of a rough weekend.
an oopsie whoopsie, you might say.
Well-
Caused a rough weekend.
I'm not going to even call it an oopsie whoopsie. This was just a fast and loose type of mentality of how they were running their organization.
Not
I
to-
mean,
Not to mention how they apparently push out all of their updates from what little I saw.
well, so just to kind of dive in a little before we go heavy into the weeds, just to describe what happened. So last Friday, technically last Thursday into Friday, CrowdStrike pushed out a update for their current software on a bunch of the Windows platforms, which ended up causing a BSOD or a blue screen of death.
For those that just have had their head in the sand, what does CrowdStrike do?
CrowdStrike is a endpoint management software solution for specifically like antivirus malware. They are the full EDR for a lot of organizations out there, or cybersecurity.
So, and this is actually for me because I was really not familiar with CrowdStrike before this. Speaking of head in the sand.
Real quick, I also want to point out that endpoint is often computer, server, something like that. Is typically
A
what
thing with an
endpoint
operating
is.
system, a thing that you can install software and such
For
on.
those of you who don't do IT support all the time.
But I wasn't really familiar with CrowdStrike. I feel like I'd heard the name around. But I've in the stuff that I've been reading about this, I've been seeing in like the logos they've shown and stuff like that. It's CrowdStrike Phoenix.
Yes.
So is Phoenix specifically the EDR
Falcon.
solution? Does CrowdStrike do
Falcon.
like other things?
Falcon.
Sorry, Pardon.
Phoenix is a cool
um,
name, but that's not what it's called.
Right.
Kind of a reverse Phoenix
They should
situation
actually-
going on.
They should, yeah, that can be their new marketing thing. They can rename it to Phoenix
Yeah,
'cause
they
it's
rise from
rising
the ashes.
rising from the ashes of the destroyed world that they left.
Yeah.
Anyway, but do they have like other products that do other things? Like is CrowdStrike like the parent
As
company
far
that
as
does
I
other things?
understand, yes.
Okay. So they just had Falcon is the EDR solution specifically that broke half the world.
Yes, and they broke it in a very spectacular fashion,
Oh yeah.
which we will kind of get into. But before we really delve onto that side, Matthew, since you are currently the in-house developer here, you have pushed out applications and updates and things to multiple different type of sides of the IT spectrum.
Mhm.
Can you at least describe from your perspective, if you have an application on a Windows platform and you're needing to push out just a very basic update, what are some of the best practices and safeguards you should put in place before you say you put in a system level change?
Well, I mean, it's the same principles for just about anything that you're going to deploy. Like, number one is have a plan to roll back the update, right? Because if you can do that, no matter what gets screwed up before or after, that's kind of a catch-all. That'll save your bacon. To prevent a bad update, so that we don't have to roll it back, you want some robust automated testing. There's two realms of testing. There's automated testing, which is setting up your continuous integration, continuous delivery pipeline, and making sure that there are systems in check to make sure that you didn't screw something up royally, like what happened. And then there's functional testing, where in that case it would be you install, in this particular context, you install the CrowdStrike software on a laptop or a desktop or something like that, and then test it yourself.
I mean, that's literally all it would have taken
Yeah, just like
for
a smoke
this.
test.
Like,
Yeah.
that's all that would have been needed, is to
Theoretically.
just test it on one computer, and
Yeah.
it would have revealed what
Theoretically.
would happen. At least revealed there was a problem.
Yeah. You would not be surprised, or you would be surprised at how often works on my machine is a real thing. Like, in this case, I find it hard to believe that was the case,
I was
because
gonna say I feel like this is
the size, the
exception
scale
to
of
that.
the problem, I think, should have that raises some red flags for me. But
well, and that kind of gets into the some of the materials I know that we've all looked at in preparation for this. The analysis of of what actually happens in the kernel to cause, like what the thing was, the
Yeah.
actual bug that caused this. I'm fairly certain after seeing that there was no way, shape, or form that anyone could ever claim not on my machine.
'Cause
Because it was, I mean, the way that it affected the kernel, I mean, that was going to happen on
Yeah.
pretty much any Windows
Because I mean,
machine.
it didn't affect the kernel. What it did
It was
is
because of the way the
so
kernel
we
works.
should probably
and the way
back
that
up and
this
explain what it is actually doing and why it caused a problem.
so
got into the corn kernel, and
well.
when you heated it up and oil it, prevented it from
So
popping.
so in Windows, you technically have two realms that your software can exist in. You have which operates on a based off rings. So you have ring 0, which is kernel level. That is the actual main running operating system, which that would be Windows 10, Windows 11 during this period. And then you have ring 1, which that's your standard applications of like
That's
what
userland.
yeah, that's where your Chrome lives, your Word applications, things of that nature, all live in application land on Ring 1. Well, CrowdStrike's current EDR platform runs and operates in Ring 0 on the kernel level. So if anything happens to that solution where it crashes, it goes into a hard dump, it freezes, anything of that nature, it is very, very likely that your entire machine would hard crash and blue screen, which is what occurred during this past event.
Yeah.
And I understand some of their reasoning of why it was important to run this stack currently under kernel, because with the current landscape we have and the current attack vectors that are constantly available, running something in kernel that is the lowest level you can potentially get to the machine while still running in the OS to be able to find, detect, and make sure that those types of solutions aren't running on your workstation.
Yeah.
It makes sense. What doesn't make sense is they wrote it as a kernel driver and now are just updating libraries for it to then reference and use, which essentially is like there's no check. So it went through an entire Windows qualified approval process for that driver to actually have a certificate and be validated.
Yeah.
So they did
The
that.
driver as a whole, not this particular update.
Correct. Just the bare driver. How instead of them, how a lot of other companies like Nvidia, AMD, or multitude of other vendors out there, how they update drivers is they have to go through and they resubmit when they have an update to that WQHL process and then get a certification and then they actually publish the driver. CrowdStrike didn't do any of this.
This is a certification from Microsoft themselves.
Correct.
Yeah.
They never went through any of that process. They did it that one time, or how many times they kind of had to update that driver throughout the years, but that certificate was stayed the same. The library it referenced is what they updated, and there were no checks done to that library. So essentially, you had a company, CrowdStrike, who can push out unsigned code directly to the kernel level of your machine at any time they want, and it'll just execute. And
also worth mentioning that this directory that it's referencing is not it would I think, if I remember where it is correctly, it's hidden. It would be a hidden
Yes.
folder, but it's one of the hidden folders that you can click the option to unhide folders and you can see it and get into it. It's a directory that's within, that would be if it's in the UI, it's in ring 1, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a directory outside of ring 0, outside of the kernel. It's in ring 1, the
No,
user land.
no, it's in ring 0. So
Okay, so those
system 32
sysvol
where a
files
lot of
are in that's ring 0.
yeah, that's ring 0.
But it's still just in a directory
well,
in File
yeah, I
Explorer
mean,
that you can
again,
see.
as the meme states, you can always just go and delete system 32.
Yeah.
Like that'll work. But
When all else fails,
one
you
of
just
the
have a problem.
so
delete system
being
32.
able to publish unsigned code on a code
That
on a
sounded
whim.
sarcastic. Just for the audience.
No, seriously, just delete system 32 if you have a problem. It's fine.
And download more RAM.
Don't do that.
Anyway,
Anyway.
Don't be afraid to start manipulating the registry.
Mhm.
Nothing can go wrong there.
Never save it. Just don't listen to people when they tell you to save a copy of it.
anyway,
I tried.
the worst part about this, in my opinion, is just the unsigned code thing is massive red flag
for
what-
something of this.
of this caliber.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an EDR. The
What does EDR stand for?
gosh, I actually googled this directly for you because
Endpoint detection and remediation.
response
It's
Response,
antivirus.
excuse me.
modern.
It's
antivirus.
modern fancy antivirus.
For the normies out there, it's antivirus software that's running below the operating system and intercepting system calls to make sure that nothing funky is going on. There's a reason why it is where it is and it's running how it is. The issue here is the automatic updates. So just to clarify that, like the way the software is set up makes sense. It is the lack of attention
Checks.
to detail and safeguards for deploying updates to
and
this
why
software.
we
That's the
would
problem.
say in this day and age you should still absolutely use an EDR software instead of a traditional antivirus is it's the where it runs in the operating system, the low level it runs, but also that it is always running. A traditional antivirus software like your garbage McAfee and Norton, they are only checking on your computer and protecting your computer when it runs a scan. In the in between times when it's not scanning your computer, it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
If you get a virus, if you get if you get ransomware or something like that, and the antivirus is not scanning your computer at that moment, it's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
An EDR software is constantly monitoring those packets. It's constantly monitoring those system calls, and when it detects something in the moment, it will stop it. That's its job.
It has something that's known as RTD, real-time detection.
Mm.
That is a very important feature for modern protection on your guys' machines.
So I think it's really important to say, as much as we are going to bash the heck out of this instant of what was done here and what CrowdStrike did or didn't do,
The
I think
technology is not the
the
problem.
important message is yes, you still absolutely need to use
the
this type of
principles and
software.
practice of how it was implemented is the problem.
Yeah. There were poor decisions made.
Especially so.
This was not a software failure. This was an organizational failure.
Yes. And the reason why it was so bad is, again, if this was just oh my God, we pushed out a bad update, your computer crashed, reboot it, log back in, we can go ahead and run out another update to draw this back. No problem. The problem how they actually executed this driver is it is a kernel boot driver. So when your machine turns on and starts booting into Windows, this is one of the core drivers that it attempts to load and actually get you into Windows. And if that bad update is still in there, it's going to continue to blue screen over and over and over again, locking you out and keeping your system from actually being able to initialize.
I do want to jump in here and just clarify a couple of things. So, this happened on July 19th. If it wasn't really clear when this happened. So if you want to go look up all of the different articles and stuff that were and social media posts, et cetera, that were being posted that day, July 19th, 2024. That's what you're looking for. And then obviously that weekend, there was massive amounts of stuff. This was roughly, reports are maybe 1% of Windows devices, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's billions of devices. So this was
It's an estimated 8 billion devices that were affected.
So you have huge effect. It was quote unquote resolved as far as a fix was found relatively quickly, but due to the failure itself, and I'll let them get to that in a minute, but due to how it was failing, it's a massive nightmare to fix. Now, regarding the kernel,
The process is simple. It's just time intensive.
that is not something that you will see. So if you are not a programmer, if you're not IT support, if you are like me, you're more on the operations side, you're like Ian, you're on the data side, et cetera, et cetera. Your computer actually has multiple different, I guess you could say, operating systems
There's
for
layers of operation.
simplicity's sake.
Yeah.
Your computer, laptop, your desktop, etc., has when it's shipped out when it's shipped out from the factory, before it has Windows or Mac OS or Linux or whatever, it has a boot software, if you will. And I'm personally not going to explain the details of that. It's not relevant at the moment.
We have a video that will be in the show notes.
There is a boot software, and that's what basically turns on the computer. That then engages with the drivers that we're talking about, and then you get your Windows, your Mac OS, your Linux, etc. Super simplified. I'm a couple of the guys here are probably cringing at the moment, but I'm trying to make this as simple as possible for those like me who don't fully understand all this. So because this affected the boot system and the drivers, which all engage before you get to the operating system, that also then bypasses many of the ways IT support has to remotely fix problems. So most IT organizations, and pretty much all of them that are like large organizations like your airlines, your airports, your medical facilities, they all
Banks.
have banks. All of them have ways of remotely managing, updating, fixing their computers. If it's booted at least into Windows, Mac OS, whatever. If it doesn't get to the OS you and I are used to working in, most, if not all of those methods do not work.
For some visual context on this, for those of you that are Windows users, when you hit the power button on your computer, there's the big three. You've got Dell, Lenovo, HP. You'll hit the power button. You'll see the backlight come on a little bit. It's still black screen, but the backlight's there. And at some point, pretty quickly, you'll see your brand's logo. The point where it's just the logo by itself, it's doing things in one of those systems that he mentioned. This is called the BIOS. This is operating system's not the right way to put
No,
it, but it's
it
built
is.
into the computer.
No,
but
it's BIOS literally stands for built-in operating system.
whatever. Anyway, it's built into the computer. It's on the system board. It's not the thing stored on the hard drive. But very quickly after that, you're going to start seeing the little dots, the little circle of dots at the bottom.
Or if you're on Windows 11, it's just the circle now that's mostly full.
Right. Little thing going in the circle. That is an indication that you have now reached the Windows boot procedure. If again, you probably won't see this on most computers because the vanilla Windows install behavior is usually customized by the brand. If you had installed a vanilla, Windows yourself, you would actually see the Windows logo in the center with that little circle of stuff. But most brands put their logo there instead for reasons. But that little circle indicates you're now in the Windows boot procedure. And then once that's done, you usually go to your sign-in screen, your lock screen, where you put in your password and all that good stuff. That lock screen, effectively, is where us as IT professionals with remoting software, that's where that begins. That's where we have the ability to do things because it is, as Nathan said, fully booted into the operating system. Anything that's taking place prior to that, where it's just the logo in the middle and the little spinny circle, we can't do anything. That we have no remote options to manage the computer in that state. So yeah, like you said, that was ultimately the biggest issue with this whole scenario. Is the means by which you had to fix the problem. It's not for us, it wasn't a terribly difficult thing. I had to go out Monday morning and fix, half a dozen or so computers at a certain client site. And, per computer, It's less than 5 minutes. I mean, it's very straightforward, especially when we kind of found a little shortcut. Um, but it wasn't that. It was the fact that somebody like myself had to go and touch
Yeah,
those
you had to
computers.
physically put hands
Yeah.
on it.
So it's when you're talking about a small area like ours, a small instance like this, the repercussions could arguably be said to be very small when compared to the bigger things that were happening. But like when you're talking about airlines, when you're talking about banks, you're talking about people getting stuck in airports and
Talk
people
about 911 going
yeah,
down.
911 going down. The
Hospitals
fact
going
that
off of line.
a IT professional had to go and touch physically every single one of those computers in order to resolve the issue, that's what caused this nightmare scenario.
And none of those organizations have anywhere close to enough IT people that could even think about doing this in a timely manner.
Yeah, this was not. Yeah, this is our nightmare. This is our worst case scenario, and not
Mhm.
again not because of the complexity of it. It had nothing to do with the complexity of the fix. The fix was just annoying. It was very straightforward, but it's just kind of irritating. It's the simple fact of the volume of
The scale
Yeah.
and outreach of the
the
problem.
manpower you would need to address this in the timeliness that the people stuck in the airports, the people looking to get their money out of banks, the people that were in trouble that needed 911, the timeliness that they would think is reasonable to resolve this is nightmarish for IT professionals because it's just not feasible with the scope of what happened.
This is why, as I alluded to earlier, rolling back wasn't an option here.
Yeah, I mean, the only type of rollback you could have is if you stood up that infrastructure, which I know some did. Which was like it's all gonna be dependent on your backups for some core infrastructure, like some of your servers and all that. Yeah, I mean, you if you took snapshots, you can definitely roll it back prior to that update. But the issue that a lot of organizations ran into, which was they were very secure, and we appreciate you guys, but when they started attempting to do the recovery process, especially on a lot of servers that were encrypted with BitLocker, BitLocker requires a decrypt key for you
Mhm.
to be able to actually go through that recovery to apply the fix to then get those machines online. Well, here's the problem. A lot of those core servers, specifically the domain controllers, those are Windows based, which also had CrowdStrike on them, which are also in a crashing state, which also had BitLocker on it. So you have the host that stores the BitLocker keys crashing that you can't recover because you can't get the key because it's stored on a server that's crashing.
Mhm. And if you didn't have its BitLocker key stored in
Anywhere else.
some way, shape, or form that was unaffected by this, but also secure, then yeah, you were kind of screwed.
Yeah, that is the literal nightmare scenario.
So so would it be fair to say that this, if they market it properly, this could be a great opportunity for safe manufacturers?
No.
At least small ones so you can keep in the server room.
No, this is a great marketing opportunity, even though and everything Microsoft has done up to this point, they have a lot of faults, but this was not their fault. This was not on Microsoft. But this is kind of important for organizations. If you use BitLocker, you should have a secondary location of where those keys are stored, rather that be either at an offsite somewhere or inside of Microsoft's own Entra ID or some other domain controller that, again, maybe is not always powered on. It's only up to do like a sync or things of that nature occasionally. You need to kind of start looking into that because I know this is hopefully a rare instance. This doesn't happen again in our lifetime. But if it does, and you're put in that scenario, it's going to be really hard to save face twice.
Redundancy.
Yes.
Redundancy is key.
Yeah, that's just John and I had this brief conversation the other day, and this is just my view on it, my opinion. Take that for what you will, but BitLocker is way too good at what it does. It's a great it's a great feature. It is
Let's explain
important
real
for
quick
these
what BitLocker is.
drive encryption. It encrypts your hard drive. The BitLocker key we're referring to is a decryption key. And so, and is very, very, very good at it. And the problem is that, just with some people's and organizations' bad habits, if you're not, if you get too lackluster with
Complacent.
that
It's
key,
it's complacent.
I mean, if you don't have that thing and you've lost access to your drive, if that blue, this other blue screen has come up that says, please put in your key. If you don't have it, everything on that drive is gone. Just period. It's gone. Unless you've got a super, super duper duper hacker friend that can, hack encrypted stuff like in the movies, which I'm not saying
The
that's
hacker
real.
man.
Not saying it's real. But anyway, unless that's the case, it's gone. It is equivalent to the results of ransomware and you never getting the key. And I made the comment, I know it's not entirely accurate, but it's almost like purposefully induced ransomware, like self-installed ransomware if you enable it and lose the key. But yeah, it's one of those it's one of those things about in like the IT world and technology world that terrifies me. The situation of like losing a BitLocker key
Yeah, because
because
this was literally the perfect storm where you have hundreds to millions to billions of Windows machines crashing all at once with no way to properly recover it, with a relatively easy fix that requires a bunch of manpower to get in there and resolve. It's just, how do you properly plan for something like this? Because up to this point, I cannot remember anything to this scale that you ever had to have a disaster recovery built for.
So, from a what happened standpoint, and let's avoid speculation for now. Out of everything that are there any key pieces of information that we don't know about this yet?
The only key pieces of information we don't really know is how were they validating their updates, and why wasn't this update validated before it was deployed?
that first one's easy. They don't.
Well, we don't know.
They didn't in this case.
Yeah. We do need an official statement before we can clearly state that. But as of right now, we don't have one. The only thing that we know is truly the root cause, which was this was a system driver code that ended up pointing to a null pointer exception inside of a system driver, and as the result, the whole operation system crashed, causing
Well, it created a null pointer exception.
well, yes. Well, it said it caused a null pointer. But yes, that's what caused the blue screen of death to happen and consistently loop until you can get to safe recovery.
Is there any? So we'll get to ours in a minute. Among the sources that you follow, news, et cetera, is there any, or this may not even be relevant, is there any general consensus speculation as far as why this happened?
Oh, there's a lot of speculation.
I know there's,
Um,
but I don't know if there's any. Has there been anything like that's generally agreed upon, or is it just all completely random?
It's not all completely random. There's a lot of voices kind of saying similar things where uh, it it should have been caught. It's one of those things like if you would have did any testing, this should have been caught. It's where you have to take it one of three ways. It's either malicious, complacency, or just a complete breakdown of internal processes. It's one of those three. Or it could be a mix of all of it at this point. But any type of cybersecurity firm worth their weight should have caught this. And this is not, I can't completely just put CyberStrike on blast because I have never worked with them. I've never actively used their, sorry, CrowdStrike have actively used their product or things of that nature. But when you cause the largest IT screw up in existence, you deserve to be, shamed and put on blast a bit because this was not just a oopsie whoopsie, I made an accident. This was a purposeful update that you were attempting to push out that caused it, to the extent where your whoever did this, their boss is now having to go and answer to Congress.
Yeah.
Like, if I can give you any advice for your IT career is never screw up so bad your boss has to go answer to Congress.
It's not a good place to be.
No.
No.
That's a
Not a good place at all.
And like aside from the fact that just a simple validation, like you saying, Matthew. I mean, there's the official true validation process. Debugging of code. This was just a simple test. Like,
In theory.
run the update on a Windows computer, and there was a high percentage chance that it's like, oh, that made it blue screen. Crap, there's something wrong. I mean, that would have in and of itself, in proper testing, you'd run it multiple times. And in those multiple times on multiple computers, there would have been one that blue screen. And that would have been like, oh, okay, we got to go back and check something. That would have at least initiated the delay update, go back, check the code. If an update's causing a blue screen, that's bad. That's not just a little, because again, this wasn't just something where, okay, it caused an inconvenience for everybody, where there was an error being thrown that wouldn't go away, and the fix was reboot your computer.
Or it wasn't like one of Microsoft's oopsie whoopsies and their updates were just
Yeah.
delete your My Documents folder.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't sound either good.
Minor inconveniences.
I mean on a scale of my documents are gone or I can no longer board my plane because the computer is crashing. Which one is worse?
Because even then, that one was. I mean, there was a rollback for that. There was a remediation action for that, and that remediation was capable of being done remotely.
Yeah.
So yeah. That. Besides that, though, just there is a level of, and this is getting into principles and stuff. I know this isn't always a most relevant take on stuff, but with what this company does and with what this software they offer does and the spirit of what it's doing, you have a responsibility greater than most other software vendors to your customers. Your entire existence, the entire existence of this software you're offering, is to keep people's data and environment safe. Your intention is to preserve data, is to preserve people's identities, to preserve customer data, to ensure that those things are kept safe from attackers. But more importantly, are stay intact the way that the user and the organization intends, and that it's not meddled with. And that is a very high responsibility and should be taken very seriously. And it is very obvious from this incident and what is, like you said, speculation at the moment, but pretty solid speculation. Very obvious that that's not the case. If you are this, irresponsible with your update process and the way it's released and the way that it's built, you obviously don't care about your responsibility to your end users.
Yeah, I mean, if you're literally the last line of defense for a 0-day attack on an organization, how can you, after an event like this, how can you earn back any goodwill?
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, the explanations that I've seen as far as the mechanics of all of this, to me, what's frightening is now, let me preface this. I am not saying that not testing isn't bad. The fact that wasn't clear, that it either wasn't tested or was tested incredibly poorly, that's bad. Super, super bad. As bad as everyone says it is, they're right. It is bad. My thought on this is something worse. And that is, if the people that I was seeing that was shared by the guys here on our during our show prep, it looked like the CrowdStrike was blatantly found a way to bypass Microsoft's update all of their update checks.
Oh yeah, yeah.
In my opinion, that's even worse because my immediate question is okay, if they're doing that here, where else are they doing it? In what other products and what other pieces of their product or what other products is this the norm?
Mhm.
And then also, what are the other EDR companies doing?
That's a fair question. I think that's a very fair question because I'm sure a ton of very intelligent, very good developers and engineers that work at CrowdStrike that obviously had to be to figure out this way around it. Uh, there are also some very good and very intelligent developers and engineers that work at other security software companies or just other software vendors in general. So
I mean, it does.
it's not to say others haven't come to the same
No.
conclusion and have this same workflow.
Not at all, especially since, EDRs inherently need to work in the kernel level to do what they need to do. It definitely is one of those. It's going to be in your best interest to really kind of start digging into the EDR organization that you are entrusting your company to find out, how do you guys handle updates? How do you guys actually how does your software run? They're not going to probably tell you exactly everything,
Yeah.
but at least provide, a basic white paper, a demonstration, things of that nature of where does it reside? How does it operate? Because if anything here, if you find another, security firm that does this, one is an offshoot. That's outside the norm. Two, that's a bit of a problem. Three, this is now an industry-wide problem that needs to get sorted out in one way or another, either through regulation or through some type of I don't know. It can't be a slap on the wrist.
Well, and just to clarify a little bit what Nathan's referring to as far as this bypass and this what we're concerned about is that piece where the driver itself is verified once by Microsoft through their processes to ensure that this doesn't happen. And then instead of every time they need to update the definitions for the malware that it's protecting you against, instead of having to get those updates verified every single time by Microsoft, they're just updating this file in the system files that the kernel driver draws from, which bypasses this process. I will say that I comprehend. I don't want to say I understand, but I comprehend the reasoning that was given why they do this because since we live in the fast-paced digital world where things are changing hourly, and that includes threats that they're trying to protect against. They're having to update those definitions very, very regularly to ensure that their product is protecting you from the latest threats. And so the argument could be made that, well, Microsoft's process is too slow. We can't effectively update these definitions quickly enough to protect you. So we found a workaround. That's what the answer that they have given on that subject.
Which
So
again makes sense.
that does make sense. But it does open up a very, very concerning, even outside of this event, the implications of knowing that that's a thing now. It opens up a lot more concerning thoughts about repercussions if something was done deliberately and maliciously using that process.
Because I mean, the cat's out of the bag now.
Yeah.
I mean, it was probably already known that they were doing
By
this, but
some, yeah.
but now it's out in the general public. A lot of individuals who aren't even IT centric now kind of have that information available to them of this is how it was operating. So if you can put on a decent enough front to build a kernel level driver to get validated through Microsoft to then get that certification pushed out, you can then go and deliver that software wherever you want to, have it installed on a Windows machine and validated, great. And then you can just start pushing out definition updates or other unsigned code directly through that driver in any way, shape, or form you want, or have your driver be hijacked.
And I think, at least for me personally, that's the one that the one possibility that would concern me the most is, you know, even if you're a cybersecurity software vendor, like your business is cybersecurity, we live in a world nobody's safe. Every organization is going to be compromised in some way, shape, or form at some point. It's inevitable because of the volume of threats. So having that methodology, having that process, and with the potential of you yourself being compromised and an attacker gaining access to this avenue to access billions of computers, kernels, that is a truly concerning possibility.
So, and I could be completely off on this, but could this be considered a 0-day attack?
This itself,
Not that necessarily this itself, but the way it was done. Even assume. So
Not
I'm okay.
not necessarily by definition of a 0-day. Is this definitely a security concern that needs to be flagged, investigated further to do better operations protections against? 100%.
you could probably technically classify this as a pseudo backdoor.
Yes. Yeah, you can
This
definitely
could be
classify it as a
classified as
backdoor.
that, not necessarily a 0-day, but a backdoor. Yes.
Okay. And I just want to also be very clear. I am in no way, shape, form, or fashion accusing anyone at CrowdStrike of this being malicious.
No,
We-
this
I am accusing them of gross incompetence.
Yeah.
yes.
But not malicious.
Yeah. No, I mean, there
Or
are
not malice, I should
there are
say.
no,
severe
malicious is still fine.
there are severe malicious possibilities with the way this works. There are malicious things that could take place that would use this that could wreak orders of magnitude more havoc than
I mean,
the events of Friday.
we already have the scope of impact.
Mhm.
You already know what that is. That is billions of machines can be directly affected from this from one company, mind you. This is one company. If somebody
This is one company that is a vendor to 300 of the 500 Fortune 500 companies.
yes,
Yeah.
if somebody can figure out a way, like, and this is 100% possible, if an organization can figure out a way how to weaponize this, the results will be catastrophic.
Yeah.
Because you already see the amount of core infrastructure that this can directly affect.
And not only from a denial of service point of view, but a monitoring point of view. I mean, not even just, okay, I want to now render all these machines that were affected in this event. I want to render them now permanently unusable. Just delete everything on, lack of whatever data they held or whatever access they held.
Shift delete system 32.
But not only that, but taking advantage of this as an attack to embed something that monitors everything these machines do and everything that goes on this machine silently without being detected.
Well,
I think that's an even more worrisome possibility.
It definitely is, but to pull back from some of the fear mongering on that front, the
Fair enough.
likelihood of this right now is still quite low.
Yeah.
Because there's still quite a bit of a process you have to do to be able to be validated to actually write code and operate under that ring 0.
Yeah.
So it's, again, not impossible.
And yeah, to get a lot of this that we've just talked about would involve CrowdStrike being compromised to the point of
CrowdStrike or another organization that
the
operates in a similar
organization.
manner.
Somebody would have to have the ability to push the updates that they're pushing, have the same access, and that is there's in and of itself slim possibilities.
It's a tall ask.
Yeah, it's just not impossible. That's the whole. As IT professionals, and I actually told somebody this recently, or gave this context. I know I've been accused of, minorly accused of kind of not fear mongering, but pushing worrisome hypothetical stuff like that, and we get accused of that a lot. But in our business, our job is to look at all the possibilities. That's our job as far as the cybersecurity side of things, is to what is possible. What are all the things that are not 0%? And we have to prepare for as many of those as we possibly can if we're doing our job well. So just for those that are listening, if you've ever thought like, oh, those IT guys, that's all they do is worry people so they can sell stuff. No, we're not just trying to sell you stuff. We try to do that some too, but that's our business. That's the nature of our business, is to think of all the possibilities and simply communicate those and prepare you for those as best as we possibly, as best as is reasonable.
I think it would also be an interesting study in that who is the current, what is the current makeup of CrowdStrike's senior leadership right now? Were they techies that came up through the through the ranks? Were they engineers that came up through the like MIT or someplace like that? Or are they, or did they come through the business college? Because in my opinion, that this also is similar to, the issues we're seeing with Boeing right now, where they've been having tons of issues.
Steady.
And when you are looking for a vendor of something that is of a critical nature, like your cybersecurity is of a critical nature these days, and is the company leadership, and I'm not saying that this is a one for one, this is something that is always the case, but it is a consideration you need to be making, is the company, as from the top down, do they have a clear drive for the specific industry, the specific mission that they have, or are they highly focused on the quarterly performance,
profit margins,
and the profit margins?
It is one of those that's like that is important to look at, because if they have a finance guru as a CEO of a cybersecurity company that, again, services 300 to 500 Fortune 500 organizations out there, that should concern you, because someone running that company should have a cybersecurity background, or at least a fairly heavy IT background, for them to be able to properly kind of run that organization.
And the reason this matters is because your QA, your testing, your end user support, all of these are pure expenses, and they cost a lot of money. And if you are looking predominantly at the bottom line, you're also going to be looking predominantly, okay, how do we save more money, and how do we increase our profit margins? Well, one of the simplest ways to do it, at least short term, is you cut back on your staffing, because people are the most expensive at point in all of this. You cut back on your staffing for your QA, for your testing, for anything that is not directly creating your product. And that is, and whether or not that is the case here, we have no idea. This could very well be a situation where they have the top of the company there. It's a bunch of computer engineers, and they've been doing this since before there really was a need for cybersecurity, et cetera, et cetera. And some idiot, he was in the rotation for this particular update, and he or she thought that, okay, we're just gonna push this out. The other thing about large corporations like this is it could be as simple as one or two idiots. It could be that simple.
So basically, I just did a bunch of digging through Twitter because I was trying to find something in particular. But from what I see, there's a couple of people that are claiming that what was pushed out were new AV definitions, right? Which in that case, it circumventing all of the checks and balances that we've described previously would make sense, which means that the problem would lie in a bad update that was pushed out beforehand. So the actual software itself that reads those definitions to intercept calls was present long in advance. That's one thing. The other thing, that's just like a kind of a side note, since we've delved into like the theory side of things. The other thing that I want to mention is that this could be, to Nathan's point, as simple as one idiot on his or her developer machine clicks the button, and instead of going to the test environment, it went to prod. Like it could be that simple. Now, why
true.
that's an option,
Right.
that's a problem. So, like, for example, we have where I work, we have set up to where you can run against production locally, but we have all sorts of warnings that pop up if you have it set up correctly, which that's a whole other topic. But we have all sorts of warnings that pop up by design that says, "Hey, are you sure you want to run in production right now?" And then the application will typically look different and have like a banner and stuff that when you're running in development versus when you're running in production. So there's there's stuff like that. If it's running in production locally or being able to deploy to production locally is not unheard of. In this case, I think that's a terrible idea. Seeing as production is this scale,
it's the globe.
It's just that's wild to me that that's a thing. And production in this case is also just you're probably deploying an update to a server that is then all of these devices are reaching out to and saying, "Hey,
it's the phone home server for all of the agents or the drivers on all the computers."
Like the and this is why I'm really interested to see if and when we get a postmortem what actually went down, because it could have been anything. It really could have been anything. It could have been it could have been a malicious actor. It could have been just negligence and incompetence, which is where I'm leaning right now.
I have to agree. In this particular case, I agree with you. I'm leaning
a lot of Twitter, and then if you go to you go to 4chan, you'll get even crazier stories. But a lot of them are like it's the one world government trying to take everything down, and it's the deep state and all this other stuff.
Our sysadmin had it nailed on the head pretty well the day of the incident, which it was simply someone let the intern out of the bag. The intern pushed the button, and it broke the globe.
That honestly is
on the job training.
That is honestly the most likely scenario out of everything.
Oh yeah, for sure. But like you said, I mean, I would even think that if you had what would be in my mind a robust testing and QC process, your development team, the development team that's actually writing the code and writing the net new code or the editing the active production code would not actually have the permissions necessary to push to production. The QC team would be the only ones who actually had the permissions to push the button and release to production, because that's their job, to ensure that everything's working properly. So you have this flow of the development team, they're doing the research, the R&D, testing and test environment, doing all the stuff, and they're writing their code that is going to go to production, but they do not actually have the ability to push that code to production because it has to go through. You'd have that team of testing and QC. They would obviously have inter-team communication, because that's a thing that happens in every organization.
100%.
Disagree across the board
right?
here.
But so they could ask questions back and forth. They could coordinate on stuff. But as far as actually having the responsibility and the permissions to push the code to production, that would solely fall to the quality control team.
Yeah,
because it's their ultimate responsibility to ensure the quality, to ensure that it is working properly, and it's not going to cause a worldwide.
But to be fair, they would be smart to blame it on the intern. Like, no, the intern did it. You fired him. Best scapegoat you have right there.
I also think it's worth asking the question. I'm gonna preface this. This is CrowdStrike's fault, 100%.
Yes,
this is absolutely their fault.
My favorite headlines were the ones that said that it was the Windows CrowdStrike incident, or it's like Windows, like Microsoft, or the Microsoft CrowdStrike, or the Microsoft's outage and stuff like that. That's not
For once, we can stand behind Microsoft and say it wasn't them.
Yeah,
Also, I said it before. Nobody said it on air. I think we need to take a moment and have a bit of appreciation that for once, out of all the outages that we've had and that we can talk about over the last year or two, this one was not AWS.
That's also
or
true.
Cloudflare.
That's fair.
These are all true statements. Yes.
AWS was out of the news this weekend, and I think that was good.
It's fine. They'll be in this weekend.
Oh,
Now-
probably. It's their turn.
All that said,
Can I please get? I've
All
got a
that
meme
said.
idea for you.
Okay.
all that
Put it in the
said,
chat.
all that said,
Yes.
Uh huh.
this would be an excellent time for somebody who is truly brilliant at Microsoft to come out and say, you know what, this was horrible. We're doing everything we can to help CrowdStrike figure out how this happened, what to do to fix it. And we see the reports that there may have been bypasses in testing, etc. We are launching our own review of how how our internal testing processes work, and we're going to see what if there's anything that we can do to make it better.
There's a problem with that. Microsoft
They
has to
don't
have.
test things.
I was about to say Microsoft has to have QA to do that. They don't have They haven't had QA since 2012.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say,
I was gonna say that was a thought that I had that I forgot in the moment earlier. But yeah, I as a result of this, I think it is a good introspection for Microsoft, but also a good thing for where this was not Microsoft's fault directly that any of this happened. I think it is also, while we're all pissed at everybody, I think it's worth exploring the reason why Microsoft's validation process takes so long, and with the concerns that we laid out earlier about a organization even feeling like they had to come up with this methodology to bypass it. You know, should there be just as much scrutiny placed on Microsoft's process and saying, hey, with these ever developing threats, with this, we don't want this to happen again. We want you to validate every driver, every update thing that goes into this part of this level of Windows. You need to increase your manpower or improve your processes, or you need to get your act together so that you can process these updates faster than your process. Fast enough that companies like this don't feel like they have to
YOLO.
Yeah.
because it is completely fair from Microsoft's perspective to say the plugin, the company that submits the plugin to Teams, that doesn't have to be deployed in 2 days. That is completely fair. That can go through days, weeks. That's perfectly fine.
Yep.
There has to be a different level for your AV update.
Because like we've said, the way, the level of the operating system it's running at is perfectly logical. I mean, it's good that it is there and it's running on that layer because that means your entire operating system is protected. It sees everything and it can examine everything and protect you at every point.
If you can't push out an AV update in the scale of hours, even if it's like 24, 48 hours, you can't do that in a scale of hours. That's a problem.
Well, and not only that, but you could almost see, I guess CrowdStrike wouldn't technically be seen by Microsoft as a customer per se.
No, they are.
They'd be defined as a customer.
Kind of. It goes both
They're a pretty
ways.
large one, I would say.
Customer, and you can have a customer and a partner.
Yeah, but it's on the scale of, in the range of organizations that would be submitting these things to Microsoft. CrowdStrike sounds like a pretty darn big one. So you don't think you might, I don't know, give them a little priority? Have a priority agreement with them or something where they get
or at the very least have give priority to AV updates.
Yeah.
So in Microsoft's defense, assuming that the previous theory that I posited is correct,
we can't help
in that
ourselves but find some reason
this
to
was
bash Microsoft.
This was a software update that was pushed out previously that was then for lack of a better term, exploited by the configuration files, AV definitions, whatever you want to call them, that were pushed out on Friday. If that's the case, they did sign off on it. It did go through the process, and it was just not caught by the process. And this is where this also goes back to, this could just be this could genuinely be an accident. This could also be just not wanton stupidity or malicious stupidity. It's just run of the mill stupidity, right? Of like somebody messed something up, somebody missed something, everybody else missed it. I can't count how many times that I've had to deal with an error similar to this on, thankfully, a much smaller scale. But they're just, programming is an art. Like it is an art. And I can understand
obviously
why stuff like this
I
would
can't
happen.
believe that we haven't figured this out yet. I mean, this should have been like the first thing that we mentioned. Obviously, they didn't run it through ChatGPT before they submitted it.
Or Devin. Devin is kind of the big thing
Devin.
that people like to dunk on, because it's supposed to replace developers, as
I see.
because it
Yeah.
can do all.
But
the things.
obviously, they didn't run it through the AI in order to validate it. To
Or
do the quality.
It wouldn't have
control.
gone through
Or-
ChatGPT. Well, actually, it would have
Or
because
hear me out. They did run it through the AI. The AI
The
was
AI
the intern.
Oh, we're just gonna blame it on the AI
The
now.
AI was the
Okay.
intern. It generated, like, Copilot generated the block of code. Nobody went back and verified it because they rubber stamped it because Copilot did it. So it's totally fine.
I was gonna say they wouldn't have gone through ChatGPT. It would have been Copilot, but Copilot is ChatGPT. So,
But it doesn't matter. Like, that would be, from a business perspective, the largest screw up you can do next to the screw up you already committed, which is blame this on AI while AI is already super hot and everyone's buying into it and billions upon dollars is being dumped into it. And now you're blaming the largest IT crash on your new hotness. Come on now.
Well,
It's-
that's
it's,
still-
it's better.
no, no,
it's
no.
better to
If
blame
it
Steve the
was-
intern.
If it was AI, that's still developer negligence, because whoever committed that to the repository.
You're
that's
correct,
them.
but as soon
And
as
then
soon
there's
as you
also
have,
QA just completely skipped over all of it.
I get it, but as soon as you have the headline
or
of
rubber stamped it.
of AI crashed Windows as part of this cyber,
Skynet is here, guys.
yes,
Skynet is here.
as part of any of this AI, you're gonna see companies just dump and run because they don't want to be associated with this until it all blows over. Like
Well,
let's wait and see.
we haven't even touched on
We're not going
and
to
we
right now.
won't. But the implications of I've written some of the articles in our research that we were looking through. There's already mentions of which this was kind of already happening anyway for other reasons. The now developing hesitance of organizations with having cloud hosted applications and cloud hosted things.
I experienced that today.
This
Like
was-
one of our larger clients here, we had a meeting about their current cloud infrastructure, and this incident was brought up directly with it, and their concerns about moving to the cloud now, and we're having to reassure them and things of that nature. It's like this was definitely a one-off. This was not the cloud's fault. This was definitely the fault of a single organization having problems in how the company should be running and doing its own checks and balances. But in any form of IT that you do, you're going to have screw-ups. You're going to have big ones, you're going to have small ones and all that. That doesn't mean you should just straight up abandon the technology. And that's where a lot of people are having just this knee-jerk reaction of, oh my gosh, no, I can't use this. It's dead. It's not going anywhere. AI is not going anywhere. The cloud is staying here to stay. AI is going to continue to be developed as it has been. This is just another, black mark on the entire technology. Well, actually, we'll call it the IT industrial revolution as a whole right now. This was our bridge fell. It happens. It sucks. We got to rebuild. We got to do better.
CrowdStrike hit the bridge
They
and it fell.
yes, they pulled an evergreen. Evergreen, stopped up the canal and shut down a bunch.
And
of
on that terrible disappointment,
well,
I mean, it is an apt description.
it's a good example.
all right, Steven, go ahead and where can the people find us?
If you'd like to find us, you can find us on X/Twitter. It's Twitter. @Hit'em Show. That's the @ symbol. HITM Show. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at Hostility in the Morning, all one word. You can find us at hostilityinthemorning.substack.com or on YouTube at Hostility in the Morning. You can usually, it says at Hostility in the Morning, like the at symbol, but hopefully by now, if you just search Hostility in the Morning, it should come up. I don't think our algorithm is that bad.
It's YouTube.
But if you want a one-stop shop for all those things, just go to hostilityinthemorning.com. Links are there. You can find everything you need. You can also hit us up at info@hostilityinthemorning.com if you've got questions, comments, snide remarks. You can leave those in the comments
Your
as well.
preferred chili
AI
recipe,
generated
people.
propositions for collabs and stuff like that.
Anyway, I've been your host, John, joined here today by
Nathan.
Matthew.
Steven.
Have a hostile morning.